I always encourage people to get a lawyer, even if it's just hire someone to look over it and advise them of the effect.
So do you know how prenups work in the state of Texas? We're going to find out, because that's what we're going to ask the lawyer today. Hi again, everybody. I'm Rob Rosenthal with AskTheLawyers.com. And my guest here to answer our questions is Austin attorney Jimmy Vaught with the Vaught Law Firm. Jimmy, good to see you again. Thank you for helping us out.
My pleasure.
So we're going to talk about prenuptial agreements. So first of all, I assume they're valid, they're enforceable in Texas. Tell us a little bit about them.
Sure. Well, they're valid in Texas. And if they're done correctly, they're enforceable. And the key there is if they're done correctly.
So Texas being a community property state, does that have any bearing on a prenup and how they work, or they're not connected at all?
Well, they're somewhat connected, because what a prenup does is it sets aside the property that the spouses own before marriage. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be their separate property. If there's a divorce or even on death, and so that they can actually agree to not create a community property estate at all.
Okay, so what does a prenup do then? You said it sets aside the property. What's the purpose? What can they accomplish?
Well, it can accomplish a whole lot of things. For example, like I said, it divides property, or it obtains property is separate property even after the divorce. And you can also do things like debt allocation. You can do things like agreement to include some spousal support or alimony in the prenup, or you can say that no alimony or spousal support will be granted at all. You can also do things like have pet provisions, who gets custody of the pet, or if there are any kind of dietary restrictions or veterinarians that they go to. You can also do things like have a kind of signing bonus that when they get married, one spouse, the money spouse pays the other spouse a certain amount of money. You can agree that what the money spouse is going to pay monthly payments to the other spouse, and that would be their separate property. You can also call kind of a severance bonus, I guess, that if the parties do get divorced, that the money spouse pays the other spouse a certain amount of money. Sometimes it can be significant.
Seems like I've heard two people have, and this may be just celebrities who do this sort of thing, but like an infidelity clause or something there. Is that a thing?
There's all sorts of things like that. You can have all sorts of provisions. And the infidelity clause is one thing. There's also provisions concerning even, sex provisions about who's going to do what with whom and how often.
Wow.
So that's more of a celebrity thing. But yeah, so almost anything can be done in a prenup. I'm sure I'm leaving some out. You can have religious provisions, particularly if there's interfaith marriage. Where the child's going to go to school, what churches are they going to be brought up in? So you can do all sorts of things.
Well, then let's take the other side. What cannot be accomplished in a prenup? What can you not get it to do for you?
Sure. Well, that basically the right of the child support can't be adversely affected. And also you can't make agreements that would affect, let's say, custody, anything like that, as far as children after the divorce, upon divorce.
Okay. So I think I already know the answer to this question, but is this the sort of thing somebody could just go, let's download a form from online. We'll just fill it out. We don't need our attorney to get involved to do this. What's your advice there?
Well, I always remember when, the business supply place, they had like prenup in a box, and that's kind of a similar deal. But I always advise people to get a lawyer, quite frankly, because the requirements for making an enforceable prenup are very strict. And for example, you have to have a waiver of financial disclosure signed before the parties sign a prenup. They may not realize that or appreciate the importance of that. And so I always encourage people to have a lawyer. Also, sometimes people come in and they say, well, my spouse to be or my fiance is not going to have a lawyer. I always encourage people to get a lawyer, even if it's just hire someone to look over it and advise them of the effect.
That was going to be my next question. So if one person in the marriage, one of the couples goes, well, my attorney will handle it for both of us, that's not something you advise?
No, and actually, I can only represent one of the parties. And so to me, although it doesn't really affect its enforceability, I always really insist that the other party had a lawyer look at it. Even if they just review it and tell them the legal effect, I always advise them to do that.
So that's also, I guess, the reason why it's worth it to have an attorney look over it instead of trying to do it yourself.
And right, because let's say, for example, if the parties do it themselves, let's say they mess it up, the consequences can be significant, because if the whole idea is to protect their separate property money or anything else, that can actually kind of be thrown out if they don't do it right.
Right. It sort of comes back where we started. Just getting it done isn't the goal. Getting it done and having it be enforceable and actually something that'll stand up is the goal, right?
That's absolutely correct. And like I said, the requirements are very strict. If you don't, dot your I's and cross your T's, they can be thrown out.
Excellent. Very helpful information as always, Jimmy. Thank you, sir, for making some time and answering our questions.
Of course. My pleasure.
That's going to do it for this episode of Ask the Lawyer. My guest has been Austin attorney Jimmy Vaught with the Vaught Law Firm. Remember, if you want the best information or you like the idea of being able to choose a lawyer that lawyers choose, make sure to go to askthelawyer.com. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm Rob Rosenthal with Ask the Lawyers.